Listen, you know we are really in the offseason now when we're talking about LeBron and Jordan again. Ooh, I miss this, honestly. This is a video from Uncut Hoops about a situation that's honestly been under the radar over this last week because people have been focused on the finals. The Lakers getting JJ Redick, the draft as well. But apparently, allegedly, there's a discrepancy in Michael Jordan's stats from back in the day, and it was large in terms of steals, I believe. I don't know about any other stat, but long story short, the myth of Michael Jordan may just be a myth. Or is it? Is this just Clutch Port's propaganda? We'll find out. Shout out to Uncle Hoops. His video will be in the description down below. Let's get straight into it.
When discussing the best players of all time, the best MVPs, one guy at the top of that list is Michael Jordan from 1988. As not only was the MVP, but also the Defensive Player of the Year. Now, that 88 season was nearly 40 years ago.
Right.
And with so much time passing, the myth of Jordan kind of fading. You have people coming out of the woodwork saying he was overrated, his era was overhyped, and his stats were inflated. Case in point, Tom Haberstroh of Yahoo Sports. Now, looking at this article that went
was this a closer look at Michael Jordan's 1988 DPOY award raises questions about its validity. Has LeBron James been chasing a ghost? Oh, that's a fire headline. I gotta give it to him, man.
Viral. The main claim is that Jordan 88 by the home stat keepers has numbers inflated and just kind of doctored to win the Defensive Player of the Year. And before we dive into that very quickly, Tom Haberstroh's article was framed as a LeBron versus Jordan article, not just Jordan solely. The goal of this article, the main objective, is to knock Jordan down a peg and LeBron James up a few.
That is sus. I will say that. If we just wanted to keep it okay, Michael Jordan in his 1988 DPOY season, he had some doctored stats and leave it at that and leave it to the interpreter in terms of what that means for them or the whatchamacallit. Leave it up to the viewer, the reader, to interpret that information for themselves and make their own conclusions. That'd be one thing. But to put LeBron in that headline, I think already raises questions about the biases going into this article. That is sus.
And my first big time gripe with the article, when saying Jordan's stats were doctored and inflated, 80% of the article was citing sources of other stat keepers on different teams in different decades. For example, this guy Alex Rucker with the Grizzlies in 1996. No connection to Jordan, the Bulls, or even the 80s. Now, what Alex Rucker does claim is that a guy like John Stockton's assists were inflated by Utah stat keepers, which is a pretty bold claim.
I did hear about that a couple months ago. John Stockton's assists were being doctored and inflated. But that does not necessarily raise the question, but if Michael Jordan wasn't necessarily getting special, well, he still could have gotten special treatment, but it looked like a lot of players in the league was getting special treatment in terms of the scorekeepers and shit.
Now, that is a claim. But if you want to look at actual game film, something this article doesn't have, look at LeBron James' 2018 Cavs vs. Raptors in Cleveland.
Okay.
LeBron in this game had 17 assists at that point, the highest mark of his career. And just go to the first quarter off the bat. A lot of LeBron's assists, let's just say, very loosely defined as assists. I mean, look at that one to George Hill right there. A glorified outlet pass at half court. Hill takes a couple of dribbles, a couple of steps, makes a layup. That is a quote-unquote assist in the modern era.
I think assist is definitely the most flawed stat in basketball. And the reason why is exactly what Uncut Hoops is talking about. You could get a pass from someone, one dribble pull up, get the motherfucker up in the air, pivot back on some Kobe shit and make a bucket. But just because it was one dribble and it happened in a relatively short amount of time span, you're about to give the assist to me or to whoever passed it just because of the length of the pass, like time-wise. and the amount of dribbles it took is definitely flawed. Outside of that, I feel like it's kind of hard to lie about other stats, though. Like, a bucket is a bucket. You know what I'm saying? Like, that is something that visibly affects the outcome of the game. You can't really doctor a bucket, you know? Rebounds, I would say rebounding is probably the next thing that could get inflated easier because of, like, you know, the tip, whatchamacallit, just tipping shit back to the bucket and stuff like that. Getting, essentially it's the tipping part. Outside of that, blocks, how do you even lie about blocks? How do you even lie about steals? Now, I did hear the other day that maybe back then the definition of a steal was different. In terms of a deflection was a steal, period, point blank. You know what I'm saying? Like, typically we associate a steal with causing a turnover, but allegedly there was a point in time where a steal was simply just a deflection. So, who knows? Who knows?
Now look at this one. Kevin Love. A pick and pop, catches, pump fake, kind of a jab, dribble, and shot. For LeBron James, that was an assist. My overall point being, looking at any era, there can be questionable steals, assists, just questionable stats across the board. And looking back at Jordan, the main point of this article, what Haberstroh says, the narrative he creates, is that Jordan 87 was pissed he didn't win the Defensive Player of the Year over Michael Cooper. So coming into 88, he made it a point to win the award, rack up steals, as well as blocks. And the article heavily implies Jordan 88 was undeserving of the DPOY. And first, looking at 88, Jordan's overall ranks, not looking at steals or blocks. Defensive plus minus, he ranked first. Defensive win shares, ranked second. And defensive rating, ranked fourth. The guy who finished second behind Jordan 88, it was Mark Eaton. And comparing Eaton versus Jordan in those categories, MJ comes out on top every single time.
I think the main thing that just makes it hard to justify, honestly, any guard winning a DPOY is just how you view the difference between the impact of an elite defensive big versus an elite defensive wing. You know what I'm saying? Because I feel like, historically speaking, the game has been inside out. The game has been dominated by bigs, right? So, and also just on the court, bigs have the most impact in terms of the amount of space that they can take up, the amount of area that they can cover, like all of these things. You know what I'm saying? So, even though Michael Jordan may have more steals or more blocks, and obviously is a valuable point of attack defender, when you compare that to a Mark Eaton at that time, to an Hakeem Olajuwon at that time, it's just, to me, even in today's era, it's just hard for me to justify an elite POA defender being more important than Victor Wembanyama or Bam Adebayo in a perimeter-oriented game, let alone back in the day when it wasn't so perimeter-oriented. So,
now, going back 1 year to 87, it was basically Jordan versus Cooper for the DPOY. Now, Jordan, defensive win shares, ranked third. Defensive plus minus, ranked sixth. Steals was second, blocks 15th, but for guards, ranked first. Compared to Michael Cooper, the DPOY winner, Jordan surpassed him in all those stats. However you slice it with MJ, either 87 or 88, I'd argue both years, was the rightful Defensive Player of the Year. And looking back at these stat-juicing allegations, Michael Jordan 87, before these allegations started, 2.9 steals, or scoring-wise, 37 points on nearly 28 shots, which is a pretty heavy offensive workload. Now, logically thinking, not just looking at numbers, Michael Jordan 88 got Scottie Pippen and Horace Grant. So, with that being the case,
to be fair, I don't think they just juiced it. Like, they just start juicing it in 88. I do feel like if there was juicing allegations, that would have started much earlier than just Jordan trying to win DPOY.
Jordan, his shot attempts came back down to 24.4, and his scoring went down to 35. Now, what went up were his steals from 2.9 to 3.2. Now, logically thinking, is it so insane that Jordan offensively took a step back to focus more on defense. I mean, a jump from 2.9 steals to 3.2 isn't some massive improvement. And again, Jordan 88 had added motivation to being snubbed from 87. Now, one thing Haberstroh is really obsessed with is the home stats versus the away stats, and the overall discrepancy in steals as well as blocks. But one thing this guy ignores, just never talks about, is the NBA in the late 80s, even the early 90s. The road trips to travel was extremely tough.
Okay.
Look at the Bulls' first road trip in 88.
What is this?
November 23rd to December 5th, 13 days, 8 games, 3 back-to-backs. That's an absolutely brutal schedule that in the modern NBA you rarely, if ever, see. Now, compare that to the Bulls' first long homestand, December 29th to January 12th. 15 days, 6 games, 0 back-to-backs, and no travel.
Okay.
I don't care if you're a pro athlete, stay-at-home parent, work at Walmart, Target, or Subway. Having days off just kind of refuels you and makes you much, much better when you return to your job or your sport. And for the NBA, rest is it's paramount to success. And throughout the entire article, this guy has fancy graphs, fancy numbers, but just basic things like rest are never taken into account with the road versus home stats. And going one step further, looking at the 88 Bulls. Home games with 0 days rest, they had 6. Road games, the same criteria, 14, more than double.
Oh, is he just... Maybe I probably should read the article, I ain't gonna lie, but... I mean, you know, some players legitimately do just play better on the home and on the road. Maybe that's the thing.
Now, home games, road games with 1 day of rest. At home, 23. On the road, 18. Games with 2 days of rest. At home, the Bulls had 12. On the road, had 9. What you have right there is a pretty clear picture that Chicago at home versus on the road had much more rest. And to kind of tie this to present day players, look at Luka Doncic, the NBA scoring champ in 2024. Luka with 0 days rest, 29 points per game, 44% shooting, all full from deep, a 9-game sample size. Now, Luka with 2 days rest, from 29 points to nearly 35. Field goal percentage up by 4.5%. 3 percentage up by 7%.
Fresh legs.
That sample size is 11 games, roughly similar to the 9 games with 0 days rest. If you're looking for a more logical conclusion, a more rational conclusion, it's that players with more days of rest, they perform better, specifically at home. That's true for Luka Doncic, LeBron, Kobe, Jordan, really any player in league history. And looking at 88 Jordan with that much needed rest, at home versus on the road, more points per game, more assists, boards, steals, and blocks, and his field goal percentage up by 5%. If only Jordan's steals went up at home and that was it, the points were down, assists, boards were all down, then it might be a little bit fishy. But his home stats just drastically better than his road stats.
Let me say this, because I'm not 100% on the NBA is just an honest and innocent league that doesn't rig anything. I've always maintained this belief that the NBA controls what it can control. It controls what it can control. And I think specifically in this era of the NBA, without everything being recorded the way that it is now, without, stats just being as important as they are now in terms of analytics, in terms of even sports gambling and how that has dominated the sports landscape. I think it was in the benefit of the NBA to gas up and make the legends of their time as best as they could, or to make them look as good as they can. And it's small things, right? It's small things like this, where you have Michael Jordan just up his steals up a little bit. Let him get the steals champ, to the point where that's gonna persuade the media for them to vote him DPOY. So this guy that we're trying to make to be the GOAT, he can have a DPOY on his resume, so the two-way dominance can be there. I'm a firm believer of that. I am also a firm believer of, as much as you can, to not box score watch. And my only thing is if this article changed your perception on who Michael Jordan is as a defender, if 0.3 steals per game changes your perception of Michael Jordan as a defender, then you just didn't watch him play, like, at all. I'm not even going to act like I've watched 100 Chicago Bulls games before, but the way, if this article is really swaying your opinion that much, then what are we talking about? I just don't need to have that conversation with you. I just don't. You know what I'm saying? Because the difference between 2.5 and 3.3 or even 2.4, like, the only tangible thing that you could say is the guy with the most steals is probably better at playing the passing lanes and ripping people. But at the end of the day, what we're looking at with Michael Jordan is help side defense, point of attack defense, and just being able to stay in front of a offensive player. And whatever your perception of Michael Jordan was with those things, Michael Jordan going from 3.3 to 2.6 should not sway your opinion so much that it honestly matters in anything. To be honest with you. And when it comes to the DPOY thing, you can make an argument that, you know, Michael Jordan shouldn't have gotten the DPOY because of this said reason, and that's fine. But again, if the difference for you between LeBron and MJ is truly a DPOY, knowing what LeBron's defense was in his prime, accolades, barring any accolades, just how good he was defensively, and comparing him to Michael Jordan and his defensively, and this media voted award is what's holding you back, especially knowing the controversial 2013 season where LeBron didn't win DPOY, then again, I just don't need to have these conversations with you. I just don't.
And Tom Haberstroh, to his credit, has tons of stats, numbers, data, and really fancy spreadsheets. When I look at each of these graphics, they're all sort of kind of tweaked to his own narrative to varying degrees. For example, look at this one. Home stats, blocks and steals, versus road stats, blocks and steals. And the players listed are DPOY winners. Now, of course, Jordan ranks first with the biggest differential, home versus road. Now, what Haberstroh doesn't understand, can't really comprehend, is this list, it's mainly big men. Mark Eaton, Ben Wallace, Jaren Jackson, Metta World Peace, Ben Wallace.
And again, maybe I just need to read the article, but if you're also not watching these games, and like, to me, what matters more, chat, more than a home and road discrepancy, is a discrepancy between what actually happened in the game and what the stats say. Because if it came out that Michael Jordan was actually only averaging 1.3 steals, but they were gassing him up to 3.5 or whatever the fuck it was, I'll have a little bit of a problem with that. I ain't gonna lie. Like, that's OD. Because at that point, what else are we lying about? Did Michael Jordan average 8 assists or did he average 5? Like, that's actually a big discrepancy. You know what I'm saying? But even in that, like, you should know how Michael Jordan plays if you watched him play. You know what I'm saying? At the end of the day, statistics are things that should only back up what you see on the court. At the end of the day, it shouldn't be the other way around, right? You shouldn't be looking at stats and then looking at the game saying, okay, this backs up what the stats say. It should be the other way around. You should be watching the game, and let's say we're having a debate as to why Stephen Curry is a better offensive player than Kobe Bryant, right? You should be bringing up things that you see with your eye and then using statistics to back it up. You know what I'm saying? So when I say Stephen Curry's a better three-point shooter than Kobe Bryant, okay, you made that claim. How are you going to back it up? I bring up three-point percentage. I bring up his percentage off the catch. I bring up his off the dribble shooting percentage. You know what I'm saying? All of these things, bringing up how high his volume is. You know, how, like, what is his efficiency relative to volume? All of these things, free throw percentage, free throw shooting, deep 3-point shooting, like, you know what I'm saying? Like logo threes and that shit. It shouldn't be the other way around. So to be honest with you, this article means nothing to me. Keep it a whole stack.
And Dennis Rodman. When you're talking basketball, what's easier to get? A steal in the passing lane or a shot block at the rim versus a 7-foot big? Obviously the steal on the perimeter. And for Jordan, how he played, much like Alvin Robinson, aggressive, jump in the passing lanes, and trying to get easy steals for layups. But for this graphic, Tom Haberstroh makes it steals and blocks. Now, the thing with Robertson, a great guy in the passing lanes to get steals, but shot blocking wise was kind of a 0. His career high in shot blocks for a season was 0.5, when Michael Jordan is highly regarded as one of, if not the best shot blocking guard
Averaging 3.7
in league
steals
history.
is crazy, Chad. I ain't gonna lie.
And if you take blocks out of it, just look at steals. Robertson 86 and on the DPOY, at home, 4.4 steals per game. Jordan 88 only averaged 4. Now, Robertson on the road was 2.9. So think about that. Tom Haberstroh in this article on purpose omitted the stat and didn't highlight it. And for his graphic, tweaked it ever so slightly, making it steals and blocks. The entire goal of the article is looking at steals by themselves. Now, why he didn't do that is Robertson and Jordan, their numbers, home versus away, look eerily similar. Now, that right there is my last point, but I'll finish it with this one thing. Let's say Jordan's stats, his numbers, steals, blocks, they're all doctored, they're fake. At the end of the day, what does that change? Michael Jordan, still a 6-time champion, 5-time MVP. The shot over Russell still happened. The flu game still happened. Shot over Elo still happened.
I don't even think you need to go this route, to be honest with you. It's just the things that make Michael Jordan, those are, well, that's essentially what he's saying. The things that make Michael Jordan still existed. The arguments that you would have for Michael Jordan over LeBron still exist. You know what I'm saying? Like, he's a better mid-range shooter. He's a better free throw shooter. You know what I'm saying? Better attacker, a better shooter off the dribble than LeBron. Better off ball than LeBron. You know what I'm saying? A better post game than LeBron. All of these things, you know, better footwork. Like, all of these things do not change just because Michael Jordan's stats were doctored. You can watch the games and probably tell that Michael Jordan is just better at playing the passing lanes than LeBron. You can honestly watch these games and make the argument that help side defense, in terms of being a rim protector, LeBron probably still got that. But in terms of playing weak side defense and getting you know what I'm, like the Derek White blocks, like, Jordan probably still got that. So none of this changes, man. I ain't gonna lie, man. I'm actually with Uncut Hoops on this one. This article is dick suck.
Drug game still happened.
This article is
averaging 41
suck,
versus the
bro.
Suns still happened. What I see from Haberstroh is a desperate attempt to bring Jordan back down to reality and really put LeBron James ahead of him. And the way he went about doing this, with selective graphics, selective stats, was just downright slimy. And I guarantee you, if I look at LeBron James, a Steph Curry, guys in the current era, I can find assists and steals that were kind of inflated and boosted up by the stat keepers and looseness of the modern NBA. So, as always, thank you guys for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. I'll see you next time.
Shout out to Uncut Hoops for the video. Appreciate it. It is gonna be interesting though, this off season. The conversations we're gonna have. How bored is the NBA community gonna be this off season? But with that being said, I'm gonna catch y'all on the next one, and I'm out, man. Peace.